Nothing now.
Good evening.
Oh, okay.
So for our devotion tonight, I want to take you on a little journey into the life of Abraham in the book of Genesis. In the book of Genesis chapter 12, we learn that soon after the Lord called Abraham, there was famine in the land, and he moved to Egypt. And he said his wife was his sister. Why? Because he was afraid. But look what happened in Genesis chapter 12, verses 17 through 20. Genesis chapter 12, verses 17 through 20. In Genesis chapter 12, verse 17, we read, "And the Lord plagued Pharaoh and his house with great plagues because of Sarai, Abraham's wife. And Pharaoh called Abram and said, What is this that thou hast done unto me? Why didst thou not tell me that she was thy wife? Why saidest thou, She is my sister? So I might have taken her to be to me to wife. Now therefore, behold thy wife, take her and go away, and go thy way. And Pharaoh commanded his men concerning him, and they sent him away, and his wife, and all that he had. Abram was afraid, thinking that if they see his wife being beautiful, he may be killed, and his wife be taken away. We all have fear about this virus. The president calls it a war that we are having. But who do you going to have in this war? The Lord came to Abram's aid, and the Lord plagued Pharaoh. Abram was afraid. He did something that he shouldn't have done. When you're afraid, what do? When you're afraid, you need Jesus to give you the strength and the power to carry on. Look at what happened to Abram in chapter 14. Here is a man who was afraid, but look at chapter 14, Genesis chapter 14, real quick. We read that Lot was in Sodom and Gomorrah, and there was war among the kings. Genesis chapter 14, let's look at verse 8 real quick. Genesis 14:8 says, And there went out the king of Sodom, and the king of Gomorrah, and the king of Admah, and the king of Zeboim, and the king of Bela. You know those kings, they went to war. Verse 10, And the vale of Siddim was full of slime pits, and the kings of Sodom and Gomorrah fled. They fell, they were defeated. That's what we read in verse 11. It says, And they took all the goods of Sodom and Gomorrah, and all their victuals, and went their way, and they took Lot, Abraham's brother's son, and dwelt in Sodom, who dwelt in Sodom and his goods, and departed. Verse 13, And there came one that had escaped, and told Abram the Hebrew, for he dwelt in the plain of Mamre, and the Amorite, brother of Eshcol, and brother of Anna, and these were confederate with Abraham. So Abraham formed a confederate. Here is a man who was afraid, but because he saw what God can do, he's brave. He's ready to go to war. He's ready to go to war. Verse 16 says, He went, and he brought back all the goods, and also brought him again his brother Lot, and his goods, and the women also, and the people. What are you going to do? We are at war with a virus. How are you going to go to war? Are you going to be Abram that was afraid of Pharaoh and said Sarah was his sister? Or are you going to be like Abram that have seen what God can do? And this is the first time we hear about Abram going to war, being a man of war. But he was able to put an army together, and he was able to go and fight the people. He was able to do that. And what I find interesting is that we can draw on the experience, on what God has done for us, but sometimes we don't want to do it. We just want to dwell on our own, and then fear takes control. But when we have experienced Jesus Christ, we're going to let that experience reflect in our lives, and fear is going to fade away. I think there's a song, fade away. Fear is going to fade away. So I want you to look at the life of Abraham and choose the Abraham that had the courage, that was able to go to war, that was able to defeat these kings, that was able to rescue Lot. We have Jesus that can help us. Let's count on Jesus. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Amen.